Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome everybody to our meeting tonight for Tuesday, January 14th, 2025, our regular board meeting. Please be advised that the meeting is being recorded. And if we can start by everybody standing to the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you, and thank everyone for joining us tonight. Happy New Year. It's our first meeting back in 2025, which is still crazy. But as we do most meetings, or at least periodically, over the last bunch of years, we'd like to get student voice, learn more about what's going on in our buildings, and in particular here at the high school. And so Dr. Egan, you want to tell us who we have tonight?
Sure. Tonight, I believe we have our freshman class, the class of 2028. So welcome. Feel free to walk over to the microphone. Just make sure the mic is on, and we're all yours.
Good evening. My name is Sophia Castoro, and I am the president of the Freshman Student Council. Over the past few weeks, many clubs have been working hard to create unforgettable experiences for the students in the high school. The National History and Civics Honor Society will be visiting the Stony Brook Veterans Home, delivering holiday gifts this month. Mosh Tribe will have its first competition against Half Hollow Hills West in early February and is working very hard to prepare. The Math Club has been providing tutoring during seminar and after school to help prepare for the high school's upcoming midterms. The varsity club was able to help families in the community for the holidays and looks forward to helping more people this year. The class of 2028 is helping with the Student Council food fundraiser for Stony Brook Children's Hospital and is holding a fundraiser on January 21st with Sobel of Kings Park from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
My name is Melina Chappelle, and I'm the Vice President of the Freshman Student Council. Recently, the National Italian Honor Society has donated baskets to families in Kings Park. They are planning lessons for RJO students to teach 5th graders basic Italian. Junior class officers are meeting this month to discuss preliminary preparations for the junior banquet, which will be held in the spring. Students in the Kings Park High School Drama Club and stage crew will be performing Into the Woods for the musical this year, directed by Mr. Flatt. The shows will take place from April 2nd to April 5th, 2025, and they encourage the community to come and watch. The Kings Park Jazz Band will be performing on February 28th for African American Heritage Night at 7 p.m.
My name is Haley Herfel, and I'm the treasurer of the Freshman Student Council. The DECA Business Club is celebrating the regional winners from the December competition. 2 students are moving on to the DECA States competition in March. The Interact Club visited St. John Nursing Home in December and helped Senior Citizens Bowl. They will be fundraising for the Nessequa Park Foundation in February. The National Art Honor Society recently decorated the high school lobby as a winter wonderland for the holidays. Applications for new inductees for the 2025 to 2026 school year will be available starting in February. The chorus and chamber groups are working towards a choral day in February, and Park Swing is starting rehearsals this month. Symphonic Winds and other performing groups recently held their winter concert in December.
My name is Emma Seabury, and I'm the secretary of the Freshman Student Council. The Yearbook Club will be submitting 64 pages to meet the first printing deadline on the 17th. Special Education Intramural Bowling Club has completed its 6th week. There are 26 students participating between the high school and the middle school. The Weightlifting Club is in its 5th week. There are 25 students in the club learning about lifting weights and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Previously, the Triumph musicians serenaded students and teachers at the high school with their annual Missile Tunes in December. They are now seeking permission to see The Outsiders on Broadway in April. Finally, the Crochet Club is making items to hide for random acts of kindness. They are planning to make charm keychains at their next meeting. Overall, many of the clubs in Kings Park High School are enjoying an excellent year. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you very much, ladies. Appreciate the update, and it's always wonderful not only to hear how much you're doing, but in how many different areas, from community service to academics, music and the arts, social activities, athletics, clubs. There's a lot going on here and in the community that you guys help support, and we're really happy to be able to provide you guys a forum and hopefully help in any way that we can to support you guys in all that you do. And when we're talking about the high school, I should have mentioned before, I did enjoy the video, Mrs. Martino and staff. I was wondering, Mr. Bishop seemed to get around quite a bit. He made a lot of the different skits. The staff here at the high school did a little holiday video before the holidays, so it was very entertaining and very well attended and great participation. So happy to see some excitement around here and good things. Ladies, we will understand if you have places to be and things to do. You're welcome to stay, but don't feel like you need to. And thank you, moms. Okay, so we will now move on to our first public comment section. So this is the section of the night, public comments for voting items on tonight's agenda. The Board of Education will hear public comments that address voting items on tonight's agenda only at this time. Please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. If we do not answer your questions or concerns tonight, we may respond at a future meeting or have a staff member get back to you. Under state and federal privacy laws, we are unable to entertain any comments or questions about school personnel or specific student matters. We encourage you to go through the appropriate administrative channels concerning these matters. Public comment sections of this meeting will not exceed 30 minutes in total. We ask that speakers address their comments to the board rather than the audience, and any individual may not exceed 3 minutes. Please sign in with our security guard, Daryl, when you come up to speak and state your name. We will have a second public comment period later. Do we have any public comments on voting items tonight? Okay.
Excuse me,
Yeah, what does that entail? Like,
what are the voting items?
was there one handed out? I'm sorry.
The agenda is posted to the district website, so you do have that in advance.
I think they want to know, so they're here to talk about regionalization, they want to know, is that this or is that?
And just in general, what are the voting items? I'm
Yeah, so
sorry that I didn't know to look that up ahead of time.
That's okay. It's always published probably the Friday before a meeting
Okay.
to see what's on the agenda for that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our first item is the approval of minutes of the December 10th, 2025 budget workshop and regular meeting. I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is a non-voting item, Dr. Egan, our 2025-2026 draft calendar for next school year.
Thank you, Mr. Bianco. The calendar gets reviewed many times before I finally bring it forward for adoption. I believe tonight is the third board meeting we've talked about the calendar. It actually hasn't changed since the last time we talked about it. We're still looking at draft A. We're currently waiting to hear back from the Teachers Association. By contract, the teachers' calendar year starts September 1st. In most years, they will agree to come in a little bit earlier if they know they're going to get the Wednesday before Thanksgiving off, which would be November 26th of 2025. So I do anticipate that that's going to happen. I'm just waiting to hear back from the teachers. If that does happen, we would have one conference day before Labor Day. Labor Day is September 1st. We would have our second conference day, which usually incorporates our orientations. That would be Tuesday, September 2nd, and then the first day of school would be September 3rd. Everything else is exactly the same as we've talked about before. And the calendar that we're talking about is posted to the agenda item on the website.
Great, thank you, Dr. Egan. As we've talked about before, it's a pretty standard calendar as they go these days. The usual break, some holidays, not the 2-week.
We'll only get a week and a half
holiday break as we
at
had this year,
yeah.
but back to more of a like a 10-minute break. It's been more traditional. So to be continued as we get more information. Any other questions or comments from the board on the calendar? Great. Next is personnel schedule number 9. Dr. Craig.
Good evening. Just a few items to point out. For our instructional staff, we do have 2 retirements. We have Miss Laura Macy, English teacher at Kings Park High School, and Miss Carissa Muscolino, phys ed teacher at Parkview. So they both retiring at the end of the year, so we wish them both the best. We also have a volunteer, Nicholas Calamuso, who will be volunteering for the robotics program. He's a former robotics team member from the class of 2019, so he's coming back to help the team throughout build season. Also, Ms. Kate Manson will be doing the Too Good for Jugs program at RGO Intermediate School. And for the non-instructional staff, the appointed Ms. Kristen Cooper, the new office assistant at Fort Salonga, so congratulations to Kristen. She formerly worked as an aide, and now she's moved into the clerical position. And that's the personnel schedule.
Great, thank you, Dr. Craig, and appreciate everybody's contributions, and always happy to note and important to note the volunteers that we have that help offer many of the programs that we do, so that's very much appreciated. I will make a motion. Any other questions, comments? I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is the appointment of Board of Education as lead agency for the new bus garage and adoption of negative declaration. Dr. Craig.
So this resolution is a required environmental quality review for our new transportation building that we're looking to build. So once this is passed, we can send our paperwork to SED. Essentially, it's just saying the project that we will be doing is creating no significant environmental harm. So once we pass this, we're looking to be on schedule to submit SED plans in February.
Great. Any questions from the board? I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bear with me, this is a little long. Whereas the Board of Education of the Kings Park Central School District desires to embark upon a project currently known as New Bus Garage, hereinafter the project. Whereas the project is subject to classification and review under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA. Whereas the Board of Education has designated itself as lead agency pursuant to the implementing regulations of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, specifically 6 NYCRR section 617.6B. And whereas the Board of Education as lead agency has caused to be prepared an environmental assessment form, EAF, to evaluate potential significant adverse environmental impacts of the proposed action. Whereas the project is classified as an unlisted action under SECRA regulations. And whereas the Board of Education as the lead agency has examined the EAF and all information related to the project and has determined that the project will have no significant adverse impact on the environment. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education as lead agency for the action contemplated herein, after review of the proposed action, 6 NYCRR Part 617, the EAF and the associated documents hereby determines that the above described project is an unlisted action and has no significant adverse impact on the environment, which would require further review under SECRA. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby adopts the annexed negative declaration. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby shall forward all necessary information relating to the project, an official copy of this resolution and the negative declaration, to the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation for completion of its review contemporaneously with the adoption of this resolution. Next is the approval of field trips for the 2024-2025 school year. Dr. Carsano.
Thank you, Mr. Bianco. Every time we receive a request for a field trip outside of the local area, we always seek the board's approval. We have 3 requests for the board's approval this evening. First one is for the Model UN Conference, which will be at Columbia University this weekend. The second would be the varsity cheerleaders to participate in a national championship competition in Orlando, Florida from February 7th to the 10th. And the last one is the DECA competition in Rochester, New York from March 4th to March 7th.
Great, thank you, Dr. Carsano. Great to see these trips planned, kids working really hard towards their goals in these areas. It's something they really look forward to. So, anybody have any questions or comments? I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Whereas the following groups are requesting permission to participate in various trips, and whereas the superintendent of schools is recommending the approval of these trips, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the field trips listed below. January 16th through January 19th, 25, 10th through 12th grade, 22 students to Model UN Conference. February 7th through February 10th, 2025, varsity cheerleaders, 21 students to the UCA National Cheerleading Championships in Orlando, Florida. And March 4th, 25 through March 7th, 25, 9th through 12th grade, 5 students to the DECA States competition. We wish them all luck in their competitions and the conference. Next is acceptance of recommendation to add verified new vendors to the approved district vendor list. As per district policy, all vendors must be approved by the board before any payment can be made. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Education accepts the recommendation to add verified new vendors to the approved district vendor list. Next is the authorization to sign transfers for the Department of Buildings and Grounds for the 2024-2025 school year. Mrs. Dan.
Thank you. This resolution authorizes a budget transfer into the district-wide building repair code resulting from unforeseen expenses and also to account for anticipated needs for the remainder of the school year.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? And so this is just moving money from one account to another to make sure it's there to fit the budget.
Correct, and we were fortunate we had a great TAN's interest rate, so you see that's one code, and some better news than expected in our health insurance increase for January. So we're able to utilize those funds.
All right, I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Kings Park Central School District authorizes the following transfer in the amount of $200,000 to cover shortage in the district-wide building repair code. $81,124 transfer from A976070000900 TAN's interest, and $118,876 transfer from A90608002100630 health insurance, for a total of $200,000 transfer to account A1621466100511 district-wide building repair. Next is authorization to sign contracts with service providers for the 2024-2025 school year. Dr. Colby.
Good evening, thank you. Presented this evening are several contracts to provide related services, tutoring supports, as well as program services for students within the district.
Any questions from the board? I'll make a motion to approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby gives the board president permission to sign contracts with the service providers as listed below for the 2024-2025 school year. Eden 2 School for Autistic Children, Inc., doing business as Eden 2 Genesis Programs. Half Hollow Hills, Liberty Resources Psychology, Physical, Occupational and Speech Therapy, PLLC. Lime Interpreting LLC. Little Angels Center, Inc., twice for related services and tutoring. And Positive Behavior Support Consulting and Psychological Resources, PC. Next is the acceptance of CSE meeting recommendations.
Thank you. Included this evening are minutes from 34 Committee on Special Education meetings that were held between the dates of October 9th and January 7th.
Great. Any questions from the board? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the individualized education programs, IEPs, October 9th, 2024 through January 7th, 2025, 34 in total. Next is the approval of agreement with Energia for engineering services. Dr. Egan.
Thank you, Mr. Bianco. The board will recall that we currently have a solar project underway where we put solar panels on the roofs of the high school, the middle school, Parkview, and Fort Salonga. This also included a solar canopy at the middle school. That project is coming to an end, and we want to be able to continue our work with Energia. We also recently put out an RFP for additional solar work that would be done between the middle school and RJO. We were not able to put any solar panels on the roof of RJO because of that roof. So this project would help fulfill that void, and this agreement allows us to continue to work with Energia.
Great. Any questions from the board? And ultimately, desire or plan for these projects is that they long-term save the district money.
Absolutely. It would be what's called an energy performance contract, which saves the district money in the form of reduced energy costs.
I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education appoints the firm of Energia for the purpose of providing engineering services in support of the potential energy performance contract for the Kings Park Central School District in accordance with the terms and conditions of the attached agreement. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the Board President to execute the agreement between the Kings Park Central School District and Energia on behalf of the Board of Education. Next is authorization to add organizations to the flyer distribution list for the 2024-2025 school year. As per district policy, all flyers must be approved by the board before email distribution. I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Education approves the flyers listed below for email distribution. Boy Scouts of America, Troop 75. That is it for our business this evening. Dr. Egan, we turn things to you for special reports and announcements.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bianco. Couple of just brief updates, all good news. First of all, special congratulations to our high school life skills class. It's with great enthusiasm that I share that the Kings Park High School life skills class won the 45th annual holiday tree competition in Stony Brook Village Center. Congratulations to Mrs. Walton, her students, and a big thank you for all who voted, because they won this special recognition upon the vote of residents. So lots of Kings Park people came out to vote for them. That was pretty cool. So congratulations, Kings Park High School. The second thing, and I was super proud to be able to participate. It was called the Kings Park Crinkles Bus. Over the recess, a group of Kings Park employees and their families sponsored the Kings Park Crinkles Cheer Bus. The event was organized by a nonprofit called Kids Need More, which is based in Amityville. The Kings Park Kringles delivered holiday cheer and presents to 6 local area families, which did include 2 families right here in Kings Park. Special thank you to Darlene Maffey, who's assistant principal up here at the high school, for organizing it, and our high school principal, Mrs. Martino, for joining us on the Kringles bus. So that was time well spent. Last week, Mrs. Martino, Dr. Cardesano, and myself had the opportunity to attend a special luncheon with Mrs. Mary Ellen Fay and Mr. Jeff Eklund and our 6 ISR seniors. This is an annual event that I just love to attend and look forward to. Each student describes their research that they completed and some challenges that they had to overcome, as well as where they're thinking their research is going to take them in the future. Each student shared their preliminary plans for next year, which includes an extremely impressive list of colleges and universities as definite possibilities, as many of them have not heard back from their school that they're going to choose to attend yet, but we did hear about many of their possibilities. I was just so impressed with the quality of the research that our students do here in Kings Park and what they're able to accomplish, which is really on par with we've gotten good feedback. If any member of the community or anybody with us tonight, if you find that a link doesn't work or something's not working the way you thought it should, just let us know and we can get that updated.
Great, thank you, Dr. Egan, appreciate that, and congratulations to Laura and to all of our students for the activities and accomplishments that they're doing, Mary Ellen Fay and all the students doing their science projects, science research projects. It is amazing what they do and where they take that. So very proud of all of them. Dr. Egan, we did talk, there's one other thing I want to get to, kind of piggybacking off of the website, but first also just in general, I want to open up to the board for any comments that you guys may have in general. Announcements, Kevin?
Okay. Let's hope we can get there. Thank you. Okay, open your wallets. On Friday, February 21st, the Kings Park St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee has its Grand Marshal Ball at Lark Field honoring Sue Benches, a longtime resident. on Saturday, March 1st. Kings Park St. Patrick's Day Parade. I noticed that all the principals are sitting apart from each other tonight. We have the school float contest, $500 to number 1 float, $300 to second, $100 to third place, okay? And that kicks off at 12 noon. We'll talk more about that later with the shuttle buses and everything else. On Friday, March 7th, the Kings Park Chamber of Commerce will hold its annual Persons of the Year dinner at Stonebridge. And on Saturday, March 8th, Party of the Year.
Your house?
No, close by though. Division 3, Smithtown of the Ancient Order of Hibernians and Ladies Ancient Order of Hibernians is holding its St. Patrick's Day dance, honoring Hibernian of the Year, Dennis Adrian, and that's at Travis Hall, and for $50, it is the best party in town. Thank you.
I think we have to make sure that the website has a link to Kevin's calendar, because that's the one people need in town. James?
Yes. I'd like to announce that the robotics team for the high school team has started now. It's going well. They're starting their build to build the robot. I'd like to thank the Zebra. Zebra is a sponsor that comes in and they help out. They also send 4 sponsors, plus now we have one tonight that's a volunteer plus one other. So there's 6 now that are helping out with the robotics team. Congratulations to the middle school robotics team. 1 of the 2 teams advanced to the finals, which they'll be in March. So that is a very good thing. I'd like to thank Dr. Pascal for sponsoring for them, for their club. I'd like to thank Mr. Cruz, which is an unbelievable teacher, and I don't know how he does it. He splits himself between the high school and the middle school. He's unbelievable with help from Mr. Hutch and Mr. Newbow. Both of them this weekend, all 3 of them this weekend were unbelievable, trying to get that team and making sure everybody went well. They did phenomenal. Both teams did really good. Unfortunately, only one passed through. So I'd just like to say thank you to the kids because they did a great job. It was just unbelievable. They tried so hard, and it was really good.
Great, thanks, James. Anybody else? And also, as we all know, it's gotten cold. So just a shout out to our buildings and grounds crew. We haven't had necessarily any big snowfall events yet. We're certainly not out of the woods on that, but keeping everybody warm and dealing with little issues here and there, and keeping the buildings running, and keeping everything safe for everybody as they get to school. So those are our comments. So we did want to pivot. We know there's been a lot of discussion around town in various forums around regionalization and that topic, and we've covered it at other board meetings. We did ask Dr. Egan. I want to kind of frame this a little bit for us. As we've talked about before, one of the biggest things with regionalization is how BOCES is going to work and working with other districts and BOCES. I think it's important to note and reiterate, we've covered this before, we actively work with BOCES now. They're a big part of what we do. And there's some great benefits that we get from working with BOCES. Some of the ones that we've covered before, in particular our summer school program, right? We would not be able to offer the summer school program that we offer and the breadth of the summer school opportunities for our students if it wasn't for partnering with BOCES along with other districts to make that a robust program where kids can go retake regions, catch up on material. So that's one area. The other area is in purchasing. So for example, our Chromebooks. We get significant efficiencies for purchasing through BOCES, purchasing in scale with other districts, and it becomes aidable. And so that's a big deal in terms of being able to balance our budget and reduce costs wherever we can. So I think it's important to highlight those areas that we work with BOCES and work with other districts already. The other 2 things, what we asked Dr. Egan to do is, we've gotten some comments from folks that we've handled, and we encourage, and any response that any of us have had to anybody that's come to us with a question, emailed or otherwise, is we'll certainly answer that question, but we're happy to have a discussion, because that's really what's most important, to understand where people's concerns are, understand how we're looking at things, and ultimately what the facts are. Right? And that's the most important. So what we've asked Dr. Egan tonight to do is to cover some of the things that we've heard from people, some of the questions that we've gotten. I think there's really 6 main categories of questions or concerns in the community. And then to frame them in terms of what we've heard the answers are, but not just telling you what we think, showing you where the links are, where the language is from state ed, from regulations, from regents, that is giving us the comfort and understanding of what regionalization is about. And look, you know, to put it in terms of my clients, right, it's a free option, right? There's no cost to us, there's no mandate to participate, we'll cover this, but there's no mandate to participate in anything. It's just about being part of a discussion. And our view is we'd rather be part of the discussion and try and frame what BOCES does going forward and the opportunities they offer to districts, as opposed to not being at the table, right? It goes to, even if you have the most mistrust out there, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. If you want to look at it that way, right, you want to be part of the discussion because they're going to put forth programs coming forward. And we want to help frame them in terms of programs that will help Kings Park that we will want to participate in going forward. We can choose not to, and there's no cost, and there's no downside, there's no detriment. As I said, my clients would refer to it as the free option. Right? If somebody's going to give me a free look at something with no commitment, and I can see and decide later, I'm going to take that every day. So, but we'll, as I said, that's me speaking. But we want to frame this in terms of facts and where that information is coming from. So, Dr. Egan. And look, at the end of the day, the idea is that it's more opportunities for our kids at lower cost to the district.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bianco. There we go. So, as you mentioned, Mr. Bianco, and I want to emphasize, I like to work with facts, and the truth is something that's very important to me. As an Eagle Scout, the first point of the Scout Law is trustworthy. As a Rotarian, Rotarians use the four-way test to make decisions. The first question of the four-way test is the truth. So everything you will see up here tonight is the truth. These are all of the references that the various facts will connect with. Regulatory changes, the state register, which is very important. The State Department of Ed has a regionalization main page, which also has a frequently asked questions that I'll connect with. There was a legal webinar by a law office on Long Island that focuses on education issues, which is very important. And I didn't put it up here, but I'll reference it later. School law and what we know to be true in terms of the statute and things that you can't do because that would not be aligned with law. So if we simply look at regionalization from a bird's eye view, it's actually very simple. In my 29 years in public education, it's probably the least understood, but at the very root, the very simplest concept, which is local area districts have been asked to submit a needs survey to state ed. It was quite a lengthy survey, and I'll be honest, my initial reaction when I saw the survey back in late August was, I can't believe this is a 42-page document. Thankfully, and ironically, BOCES was able to cull most of the data together for school districts, which the state already had, and that was part of my frustration. Probably 90% of the survey was simply data that the state already had. However, I have to say it was a very reflective process. We spent some time with administration, reviewing data from 8-10 years ago, reviewing data currently, seeing where things had changed.
I see some folks saying this will all be on the website, so this will all be linked to tonight's meeting. So feel free to take pictures of screens, but it's all publicly available.
So we did use the process as a reflective process, and there were a couple of items that that resonated with us, and areas that we didn't know over time had changed, and these would certainly be areas that we would look to firm up a little bit. But what's super important to understand is it's a local conversation between local school districts that's really focused on how can we collaborate to provide services that we may not be providing for students and ultimately save school districts money. We currently do a lot of this today. My personal opinion and my life's mission is always to get down every rabbit hole to save this district every dollar possible that we can. I think our taxpayers deserve that. And even if 3 or 4 things come out of this process that signal, here might be some areas we could work on, here's some savings opportunity, I definitely think it's worth it. The process is facilitated by the district superintendent. And we'll get to that later. Every BOCES in the state has a district superintendent. This position is largely not well understood by the public. They hear district superintendent, they think me. They think a school district superintendent. I'm a school superintendent. We have April Paprillo, who's our district superintendent, and she reports in 2 places. She reports to the Commission of Education. She also reports to the Western Suffolk BOCES Board of Education. And then as a checks and balances, Mike Flynn is the Chief Information Officer at BOCES. He only reports to the BOCES Board of Education. But we typically work collaborative on many items. I'll get to a couple of them in a minute. So what I tried to do, and honestly, we haven't received a tremendous number of communications about regionalization. I would put the number at about 15, either between inquiries that the board has received or that I've received, either on the phone or an email. But what I tried to do is the questions that we've fielded are on the left, and the answers, and more importantly, the quotes and the references are on the right. On the right, if it's in blue, that's an exact quote from the reference that I've given there. If it's black, it's just informational or a little bit of anecdotal or an example on my end. I realize there's a lot on the slide. I won't read every word on the slide, but this will be posted for anyone and everyone that wants to refer back to it. So the first question that we've received is, will this plan remove local control or force us to consolidate districts and or resources? And the simple answer is no. The State Education Department has repeatedly both said and put in writing that it has no intention of forcing local school district reorganization or creating regional districts operated by BOCES. Merger or consolidation of local school districts may only occur following several prescriptive statutory requirements. Statutory requirement is just a fancy word of saying the law. And then, this is another quote, no individual school district is required to commit their local resources without their agreement or consent. What happens behind the scenes is when districts like Kings Park want to pick up a service through BOCES, there's a contract that connects with that individual service. So Mrs. Rosa in the business office will put the contract in the system, that's WinCap. Mrs. Meehan, who's sitting right over there, will approve it on her level. It comes to my level, I review the contract. Every one of those contracts connects back with a budget code, and it's something that exists in our approved budget. But that's the way consent is given by districts. BOCES can't push a service or a cost and mandate it back on our direction. That's just not possible. That was the first question that I was going to touch on, and I didn't know if the board wanted to ask.
Just to maybe amplify that a little bit, to me, right, the question or concern about loss of local control, it's actually 180 degrees the opposite. This is what we would ask for. We would ask to be part of the process to think about what programs should be implemented and whether or not we want to participate. This isn't a mandate. This isn't somebody telling us what to do other than asking us to be at the table to talk. And so it is the epitome of local control. You're involved in the decision-making process, you're involved in the discussion, and then ultimately you have the choice, participate or not. I think a good example recently of something that we would say we wish we had more control over is, I think you heard, I didn't get a chance to listen to what the governor said today, but she said over the last week, over the weekend, right, they're gonna look to fully fund school breakfast and lunch universally. Right, great, seemingly a great idea, a great thing, and there are a ton of people that need that. But to just do it universally, look, we have a lot of members in this community. You know, I was very fortunate when my kids were going through school. We could send them with lunch or we could send them with lunch money. Like we were very fortunate we didn't need that support. There are members of this district that do, and there's ways that they're identified and they're able to get that support. But for the state to spend money on universal breakfast and lunch for every kid in the state is in many cases probably a waste of money, right? That I'd rather see that money go to other programs, and if they asked us to participate in that discussion, maybe that's what would happen or not, but that would be our input, right? And that's the difference here. At least we have input in potentially how things get formulated. And that, I think, was a really good recent example of, you know, things that don't fit Kings Park. We want to direct it to the people who need it and not just make it a blanket program. Anybody else?
I think,
For the, yeah, we need to.
I hate this thing. Is it even on? Yeah. So part of, I think, what people fear, and maybe you can help reassure the community, is, from what I've heard, people say that they're afraid that because the language is vague, that the state or the district can just consolidate, can just, they don't believe that our resources, I'm trying to use the language, won't be shared, that we can just do it, merge districts. But maybe you could reassure them that that can't be done. That requires, just so people are aware, when we do public comments, absolutely, write it down so you don't forget to ask us, because I can't really do it right now. But just so you know, merging districts requires a separate procedure. It requires a separate process, and just so you're aware, it also requires, from what I understand, a community vote.
Yeah, it's a voter referendum.
Right, so we cannot, the state cannot, we cannot merge districts. It's a different thing. Regionalization is different than merging districts, and we cannot do that. We don't want to do that. So just to make sure.
Yeah, you're right. And the reason that most mergers never happen is, one community will vote yes and the other community will vote no. Usually it's, where the resources are going to go, or even, how the employees are going to be paid, which contracts will prevail. But you're absolutely right. There's statute on consolidating districts. This is definitely not that.
Anybody else? Next one.
Okay, the next question, very, very simple. Does our school district have to participate? And quite frankly, the answer is no. Direct quote, upon completion of the regional plans, school districts need only pursue implementation of activities they have agreed or consented to for their local context in the final plan. And again, we would agree or consent through a contract process that goes through multiple levels of approval. So some may say, well, why participate at all? Aren't we fine? Well, I'd argue if we're able to get a seat at the table and we're able to drive the conversation to best suit our needs, we may be able to act some savings, some economies of scale on things that we currently purchase, things of that nature. Everything we fund through BOCES results in a state aid back to the district, which is revenue the following year. So engaging more in these types of services through BOCES generates income for us. So again, trying to be the most fiduciary we can and go down every rabbit hole for our community. I personally think it's important to see what good we can call out of this.
And that's what I would refer to as the free option. We get to go participate, we get to listen, chime in, and then decide.
Can I just,
Sure.
can I just also just to clarify, because I know there are parents here who are concerned. So what that means, and you can just tell me if I'm on the right track and to just make sure that I have this correct. So in other words, if it's when you have your meetings or even if it's a phone call, for example, if a district if a district either wants to have a subscription to something progressive, everybody wants a subscription to Kahoot, we want it in our district. It will cost our district $10,000. Or we want to add an AP class, and it'll cost our district money. We can go to BOCES, and we ask BOCES, hey, this is the things that we need. Can you help? Are there other districts who want? And they will come back to us and say, great news, we found 4 other districts who want to also have a Kahoot. I mean, I'm simplifying it a little bit, basically, who also want a subscription to Kahoot. So instead of your district paying $10,000, now you only have to pay 2, part 1. Part 2 is, so great news, you don't have to hire a full-time teacher if you can't afford it. We'll find a .2 teacher that you can share with Hop because they also want the same, right? So, and it's not shuffling around our teachers, we're going to add, and so that saves us money. So maybe we can't have that class if we don't share. So that's part 1. Part 2 is if we get the phone call on the opposite end. If a district calls us, do I have this correct, and says to us, hey, we know you have a great robotics club. Can we send, we're Deer Park, we want to send you 6 kids so we can have participation and join forces with your robotics club. Or we want to have a hockey team with you. Or we want to ship kids over or share a teacher for a certain class, an AP class. We, under regionalization, just to be clear, because I think this is where it gets really confusing, as a district, we can say, no thank you. If it doesn't work for us, we hang up the phone, or you leave the meeting, and we say no thank you, and it's really important, and this is what I think so much of the misinformation comes from, is that's it. There's no strings, you just say no. Is that?
Correct, and I can give you a couple of concrete examples. So the board will recall the parent that's come to a couple of board meetings and desperately wants a bowling team. Okay? We don't have a bowling team. Our local area school districts do have a bowling team. So that's an area that we might want to pursue and see how that goes. We haven't had to date any of the reverse happen, but same thing. If that was something that other districts were interested in, they would reach out to us, and there would be some sort of contract involved with how we might collaborate and combine with that district. We will not be busing students in to use our services here in Kings Park from surrounding districts. That's not going to happen. However, if we use the example of busing, we may discover that 3 local districts are all sending 2 kids to the same private school, and that's not an efficient use of resources where you have a bus simply taking 2 students, and maybe that bus goes right through Northport, which is my home district. What we would likely do is each district would pay for an appropriate seat on that bus, and we may collaborate on that. And then the last example I'll use, every year there are requests at the high school for courses that we're simply not able to offer because maybe only 3 or 4 students want that class. A good example might be AP Music Theory. I know that doesn't run every year. We may discover that other districts have the same issue. And we may be able to figure out a way where we can collaborate on that course. One of the problems we've always run into is the bell schedule in the buildings don't match up. But that won't take a teacher's job because we wouldn't have offered that course. But we may be able to piggyback on a surrounding district and provide a resource that wouldn't have happened if we were acting alone.
So Dr. Egan, I got a question. We use this service now, if I am correct. We use the service, it actually saves our district a lot of money as of right now with BOCES, if I'm correct.
Correct. We run usually in any typical year between $5 and $6 million through BOCES for various things. Summer school, I could give you a litany of items currently.
And just to your example on the athletic teams, I mean, just from recent past experience, sometimes those other districts have said yes, and sometimes they've said no. And that would be on either side, that's both districts' opportunity to say yes or no, and both have to say yes.
Correct.
And so then it begs the question, why participate at all? If it's working for us now, why do it?
Because it doesn't cost us a dime to participate, and it gets us in the conversation. They're pushing out the idea of regionalization, of trying to get districts to talk more. Our regional BOCES is going to hold meetings. They're required to do that. Aren't we better off being at the meeting and trying to have some input on what programs they run in the future that we're more likely to want to participate in than to say, no thanks, we're no better, we're fine, we don't even want to talk to you, when we can always say no later. It's only committing us to the conversation to see if there's places that can serve our kids or save us money at no cost.
So it's kind of like, if I have this correct, I think. We work well with BOCES now, right? This works for us, no issues. I don't think anybody in the community has an issue with that. It's, so why opt in? And I think, if I hear this from my understanding, is one, to save money, like you said, because it will just save the district money, which is what the community wants. So it'll save us money is one. And I think the other one is, and I'm pretty sure, but I'm not exactly sure the region. So regionalization is, right now we function in Western Suffolk BOCES. We have our little cluster, right? So we work really well with them. Regionalization, if I have this right, would just expand that. So if we want that Kahoot, and nobody in our cluster wants to share that subscription in Western Suffolk BOCES, now because it's regionalized, all it does is it expands. So now we can go to anywhere on Long Island. So now we can partner with, I don't know, Belmore Merrick in Nassau County and lower the cost, where before maybe we couldn't do that. Is that?
That's correct, and I'll even take it to another level. So a good example, they have 37 BOCES across the state right now. At one point in the not too distant past, we figured out as a state, rather than work on policy as an individual district, Erie One BOCES, which is a BOCES upstate, specializes in policy review. So most districts in New York State leverage, and that's a BOCES expense. We go through BOCES. So it's possible that a BOCES in their conversations somewhere in the state thinks of something that we haven't even thought of down here on Long Island. We're also able to piggyback on that contract moving forward, and go into that economy of scale type situation where if we went to do that in Kings Park, it might cost us X, but we're able to do it on a more global basis, and obviously that's going to be cheaper. It's also going to generate a revenue stream.
And again, I just want to stress, the worst outcome here is that we're in the same place we are now, and we're doing what we're doing the way we're doing it. There's no cost. And there's no requirement, mandate to do, accept anything that we don't choose to participate in.
Correct. Question number 3. If we participate, our resources will be used to provide services for students in other school districts. Absolutely not true. That was another fallacy that was floating around social media. Direct quote, local school districts are only required to educate students who have established residency or are homeless under the McKinney-Vento Act. The regional plan may not force a school district to educate out-of-district students without their consent or permission. And the good example you used before, Mr. Bianco, that I was going to speak to is regional summer school. So Western Suffolk BOCES runs a collaborative summer school. We would never be able to run summer school on our own on a cost-effective manner. And in fact, before I came here, before Dr. Cardesano and I had a chance to really look into it and research it, we didn't participate in regional summer school. But now we do. It costs us a little bit of money. We run that money through BOCES, but we're only charged per seat of kid that attends that service. We're not paying for more than our kids connected with that service. That's it, and that's all that's going to happen moving forward. 3 more questions.
I think I've covered this.
Yeah, is this going to cost us anything? Again, the answer is no. Direct quote, it's our hope that each participating district will benefit with additional educational opportunities. I'll use the AP music theory as a good example, and through operational efficiencies, the Chromebook purchase might be a good example of that. Any follow-up on that one? These last 2 are interesting. There was a graphic and an article that was actually published in a Nassau County local area newspaper. And the question is, isn't this just another overreach of the governor during COVID? No, and mostly editorial on my part, but during COVID, the board will remember the governor, typically on a Friday, would release executive orders, and they were not to be questioned. They had the effect of law, but they were released from the governor. Things that we've seen in social media, things that we've seen particularly coming out of Nassau County, have tried to make this issue called regionalization connect with emergency orders by the governor. These were regulation recommendations from the State Education Department, which is a division of government up in Albany. It's actually the only department that does not fall under the governor. You might ask, so who has supervision over the State Education Office? It's actually the Senate and the Assembly. And that's a conversation I've had with our local officials in terms of making sure that that they have their sights in the right direction. Originally, this was a proposed regulatory change that was made by the State Education Department. There was a 60-day comment period. The regulations get posted in the state register. The state then heard public comments. They went back and they tweaked the regulations. They changed the wording based on the public comment period. And those references are listed there. There's actually 2 references. There was a legal webinar on the structure of government in New York State that includes BOCES and a couple of other odds and ends.
Yeah, what I would say here, Dr. Egan, is it's sort of the right concern, it's the wrong issue. We need to be worried about what the governor's doing, and we need to not be distracted by this. What we need to worry about, and like I said, I do want to go back and see what she said today and talked about funding. We need to worry about the budget, and we need to worry about funding, right? Because that's what the governor controls largely with the Senate and the Assembly. but that's where the dollars are, right? And we saw that last year when she wanted to revisit foundation aid, and they did the Rockefeller study, and that will undoubtedly change and will most likely not be favorable to districts like Kings Park. And that's where we need to not lose sight of what's going on in Albany and what's going to ultimately help our district. We already send more to Albany than we get back. We want to limit how much that flow continues in the wrong direction, right? So that's where our eyes need to be focused on budget, budget, budget. Not free stuff.
You got it. Last but not least, this one I find slightly humorous, but it's not. Posted a couple of times on social media. If we participate, Dr. Egan will no longer report to the Board of Education. That is wildly false. The change in Commissioner's regulation applies to the district superintendent. The district superintendent has always reported to the Commissioner of Education and the BOCES board. The regulations do not change anything to do with school superintendents, which is what I am. Unfortunately, I think the person who posted this does not understand the difference between the two people. This is very clear in school law. It's chapter 10 in the school law book, which explains specifically the role and responsibilities of the school district superintendent, who's April Paprillo, who reports to BOCES, and a school superintendent, which is my role here in Kings Park. So you're stuck with me one way or another. I will continue to report directly to you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Egan. Anybody else have any other questions or comments from the board? Thank you, Dr. Egan. I appreciate putting this together. I know Shivani worked with Dr. Egan on this and the board. We've spent a lot of time making sure we understand this and asking the questions that we have, as well as the community has, of Dr. Egan, of our state representatives and education leaders. So we've heard the concern and spent the time to get smart and get educated and get our best understanding of what this all means. I'll make the same offer I made before. If anything is unclear, if you feel differently, if you think there are things out there that lead to a different result, talk to us. We're all here, email, set up a call, meet. We're happy to, one-on-one, in a group, whatever it is, talk through this. Be educated if there's things to educate us on, or do some education, or at least agree to understand everybody's perspectives so that we can have a conversation about these things. Right? So happy to meet with anybody, talk to anybody. As I've said, unfortunately, usually there's questions or there's statements and we try and correct them and we offer to meet and people don't take us up on it. So please, let's have a conversation. So we will, and we'll stick around tonight after the meeting as well. But just to continue in our meeting, now is the time for public comments on any topic. So I don't need to reread the statement that I read before about kind of the rules and conduct. We have 30 minutes. We'd ask you to try and keep to 3 minutes. But if you have public comments on any topic, we welcome you to come up to the podium. We may answer your question, or we may ask you to meet with us separately. We'll follow up on that. But anybody with public comments, please sign in with Daryl. Okay.
My name is Nancy DeMagda. I live at 20 Primrose Lane. I have no questions about BOCES, so I'll be quick and thing. When I got my tax statement this month and I had to pay it, I noticed there was an increase of $2,000. I get a senior discount because whatever. I called the assessor's office and I said to them, why did I get such an increase when I have no children in school and it's over $1,000 this payment and when by June comes it'll be another $1,000. Never got any kind of notice from the school or anybody else. The assessor says to me that Kings Park was one of the few, I say few, who went from 57.4 reduction in taxes for seniors to 37, I don't have my glasses, 37.4. That's a 20% decrease in what we have to pay with no children in school. Now, I put 3 kids through this school system. We're here 50 years. I've always paid my taxes. Now, why did you people decide that, let's get 20% off of the seniors? You made a very good statement, Mr. Bianco, when you says, when Governor Hochul wants to put breakfast, lunch, you know what? I don't care. I feed my grandchildren and my kids. I don't need her money. I don't need to send them to school. But you said put the money where it's needed. And I think that 20% is needed back into the senior citizens of this town. You're making it almost impossible for people to live here. You know you raised my taxes by $2,000, maybe more. You know what my Social Security between me and my husband was this month? $76. That doesn't even cover the tax increase. I would like to know why you voted to cut this tax in half. Don't you have any eventually we're all gonna die, and you're gonna rent it and sell houses to people who have 12 children, and you'll get all your money. But why can't we live here after we've lived here and paid our dues, working 2 jobs and everything to put our kids through this school system and never once complained about the increase in the tax? When the taxes went up, I got a job. When my kids were old enough to be brought home by themselves, I went out and got a job so that I could afford the things to give them and pay my taxes. I want to know why you opted to cut that tax by 20%, because it means an awful lot.
Understood, and Nancy, we're happy to follow up and discuss. But one thing I can tell you is and we're talking to the assessor's office.
Speak a little louder, please. I can't.
And we can talk after one-on-one. Okay. But we're speaking to the assessor's office now to get numbers and figures. We did not change anything. We did not vote to lower the exemption.
Well, that's what he told me.
It just happens to, we'll get an explanation. It's not true. We have had the same exemption as long as I've been on the board and before we went back. We knew this was a question. I believe you or somebody else had reached out. So we've done research on this. We're speaking to the assessor's office to get the figures.
I do have the figures. He gave them to me.
Well, his statement that we voted to lower the exemption is incorrect.
Then why my taxes go up so high?
That's what we're trying to find out, okay? But we did not, there's different calculations, the way the exemptions work and what the income thresholds are. We don't calculate those taxes, the town does, okay? But we did not, we kept the same exemption. We've been favorable for any opportunity, whether it's been volunteer firemen, whether it's been veterans, and whether it's been seniors. We've taken the opportunity to offer exemptions. Now, what we've learned, there may be a higher exemption that we could change and move up to, and we're looking into that because it is really a closed system. Whatever the school budget is, right, those taxes come from the community, and whatever one person doesn't pay, somebody else does. So we're trying to get information from the assessor's office to make an educated decision, but we did not change anything.
Well, that's what he said. Maybe you should talk to him real fast
we are.
because I have to pay that tax. All right, I already paid it because I don't have a mortgage, but when you're not even letting anybody know that your taxes are gonna go up that high is ridiculous.
We would have had no idea, right? We know what the district budget changed by and what the community voted on a budget. We did not change the exemption. We're speaking to the assessor, and we'll be in touch. And we'll talk.
I'm going to call him again to tell him exactly what you said.
Okay. And we'll share what we learn as well.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scalper, you're next. Scalper, you're next.
Good evening, my name is Anna Gallagher. I reside at 25 Ravenwood Drive, Kings Park. I am a retired educator, so I'm not unfamiliar. Dr. Egan, you mentioned the superintendent's work with BOCES, etc. But I do know that the superintendents around Long Island and elsewhere have enjoyed meeting time and planning time with other districts in perpetuity. My cousin is a superintendent on Long Island. I know she was involved, very much involved, and the superintendents all work together, as does BOCES. So that's one point I want to make. In my investigation of the regionalization plan, the stated purpose by state ed is to improve access to educational opportunities for all students, to create more equitable opportunities, sharing staff, programs, and money across district boundaries. And you've done that before. Superintendents have done that before. The districts I've worked in have done that before. We've enjoyed relationships with other districts where we shared teachers and perhaps clubs and other opportunities as well. That's happened without using words like contract, because I think you give the public a rash when you use words like contract, because then it's not they who help decide, it's you, and they don't hear about it until after it's already done. My daughter's graduated from this district. She received a fine education. I know Dr. Egan from Hofstra way back then, you may not remember, but I have one last question. Do you believe that Governor Hochul will attach school aid to whether or not you participate in this? Because all the districts around here are opting out, some are filing suit. So I don't know who you're going to work with. My understanding is a lot of districts, including the one I taught in, is filing suit against New York State. So why are we so eager? And I wonder if it's because you think we'll get more state aid if we opt into regionalization. Is that a factor? No?
It's not, but if it were the case, but that's not a reason. It's all the things we talked about tonight. It's a free, as you said, districts collaborate all the time. Districts, guys, we do this, right? You'll have your turn if you want to come up and speak. It's free to participate, there's no cost. The sharing of resources is our choice, once we understand what those shared resources potentially could be.
But that's the way it is now.
Correct. So
if nothing's changing, why are we doing this?
It's all we're doing is agreeing to talk, which we already do. So we're just.
I know you talk. That's my point.
And the point around contracts are actually meant to protect us. And as you saw tonight, we ratified a number of contracts, right? Contracts are necessary in this day and age to protect each other, to protect ourselves from lawsuits, from other things that happen, so that we understand the relationship that we're entering into, what our commitments and what our obligations are. So I would be embarrassed, and we'd be failing our fiduciary duty if we entered into any agreements without contracts. Any of those things that you've talked about that we've done before, there's a contract to support, there's an agreement to support those. So we're doing nothing different other than, I don't, as I said before, we don't do this, budget is an issue, right? It's a separate issue, right? We need to watch funding and foundation and all those things. But if BOCES is gonna do things, and they have a budget from the state, and they're gonna implement programs, why wouldn't we wanna have influence over what it is they put out, and then decide if we wanna participate or not?
I think you already do. And you have.
But these will be different meetings, and if we're not at the table, we're not at the table.
I answered that before, actually, because I did hear that, and I understand that that's a concern. So the answer, and it's really no more or no less than, you're right, we do it, you're right, nothing changes. The only thing that changes is now we have more opportunity to save money and to enhance our program. So before, when we were restricted to Western Suffolk BOCES, now we can partner with whoever we want or don't want to. And I think that's the part that really needs to get communicated. So if we wanted to save money and add a program, now we have a partner in Nassau County where before maybe we couldn't do it with, now we can, but we can also say no. We only do it if it benefits Kings Park, if it reduces our money. If it doesn't, we say no,
and we walk away.
How does this affect your partnership with the local districts that are opting out around us? Are you still going to have a partnership with those
Of course.
districts?
Of course, all the informal relationships we have now don't change. Dr. Egan has his colleagues that, whether it's on calendar, on snow days, on other things that are going on in education, it's about relationships and networking. And this is just, maybe it's a formal process that we don't need, but if we're doing it already, it doesn't hurt and there's no cost.
And I understand your decision was due by tomorrow, correct, in writing to the State Ed Department?
What's due tomorrow?
So it's done, right?
So we have submitted the survey already. It's posted on our website, what we submitted, so we're transparent about all the information that we're providing. It's available to everybody in the district on the website. What would be due tomorrow is if we were choosing not to participate in the survey.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Gallagher.
Mr. Noreen, please. Okay, hold.
Good evening, my name is Sean Noreen and I reside at 3 Spencer Way, Kings Park. First off, I think everybody in the audience can agree, nothing in life is free. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You want to know where your taxes went, why they were raised? The majority of our taxes that we pay goes to the school. Does everybody agree on that?
Yeah.
So that's self-evident, that's done.
The point is if you have comments for us to address.
Now, you keep on saying that, oh yeah, it's just a seat at the table, it's a seat at the table. We don't have to agree to anything. If it only is supposed to benefit Kings Park, that's not realistic. To sit there and constantly deny other districts something and we're only going to benefit. At some point or another, they're going to go and they're going to say, why are you even here then? Why are we giving you, but we're not getting anything back in return? See, you said the contract, that contracts protect you. No, it kind of takes away from you, at least the people out here. It's for the board members. That's how I feel. Here's my other question, a rhetorical question. Why some of the board members, your communities that you're in, opted out? I'm sure you guys have a majority influence in your communities, but your community, where you reside and have kids, opted out. Attitude reflects a leadership.
I'm sorry. We all live in the Kings Park School District.
No, that's false.
All the board members live and must live in the Kings Park School District. We all do.
We all reside in Kings Park. We have to.
So
I don't know where the facts are on that, but we all have to reside in Kings Park.
Dr. Egan is a.
The board members.
Okay, let me rephrase. Some of the people on stage right now, let me say that. Let's leave it at that. Some people on the stage right now do not reside in Kings Park. So all I'm saying is, if nothing's going to change, and it's no big deal that you'll still maintain a relationship with BOCES, leave it the way it is. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Don't overextend yourself. Because at that point, you're saying, oh, it's just a seat at the table. No. You will have to, at one point or another, I'm not saying you're going to have to provide, like, the teachers or whatever. Maybe it's going to be a monetary expense. And you're taking away from our students here.
That's not the way.
So I think everything should just stay the same. I think that we should opt out. I think a lot of people that I speak to in the neighborhood do the same way. So that's all I have to say.
Well, first, I thank you for coming here and being part of the conversation, right? That doing this face-to-face is important. Yes, many of our district employees do not reside in Kings Park. The board all does, by law we need to be district residents.
Yeah, I apologize for that, I just meant to
That's okay.
rephrase that,
I just-
the people on the stage I meant.
That's fine. Look, I would just like to say, we know how to say no, right? So entering into the comment, your comment is, you can't just go there and say no. Yeah, we can go there and say no all the time. And the idea of having discussion, as we have with summer school, as we have with purchasing, is things can occasionally be mutually beneficial, right? That's ultimately what you're looking for. When you come together, you find ways that, right, economies of scale, buying things for less because we're buying 100 instead of buying 10, right, generally save you money. And that's the point of a lot of this, is come together, try and find things that are mutual. Of course, nobody's gonna agree to do stuff to help us and hurt them, just like we wouldn't do that either, right? The idea is to have discussions of places we can work together to be mutually beneficial. And if we don't, say no. And if they get fed up with us saying no and tell us to leave, which they don't necessarily have the right to do, then we leave. But there's no, again, I hear you, but there are some things that are free, right? You're paying, or I'll say, you're paying for it already anyway, so why not take advantage of it, right? It's not additional cost.
Okay, here's my thing. I love the school district. I moved here for the school district because I know that it's really good. I came from North Belmore. Over here, I wanted something that is the same or even better. When you personally, all of us personally, you strive, when you want to be the best, you look for somebody who's better than you, and you use that as motivation, and you try to be better. When I look at school districts, I would assume that we want to be like the better school districts. We're not bad, but there's always room for improvement. Other districts, like in Hauppauge, like in Northport, like in Cold Springs, Harbor, and all of those opted out. So the rhetorical question is, why? Why would districts that are performing better, have better ratings than us, opt out? What are we missing? What are we missing?
They don't always have better ratings than us. Some of them might, and some that have might things in certain areas, and some of them might look at some of the things that we have and offer and say, we wish we could do that, right? But again, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of engaging in a conversation and saying no. Look, the other thing, and Dr. Green, correct me if I'm wrong, right, we talked about contracts. So the one thing, maybe to turn this around, is if we were to participate in these discussions, and if we were to find something that we thought made sense, we would have to document, we would end up documenting it by entering into a contract. That contract would need to be on a board agenda. It would be noticed to the public. You all would know, we're not gonna do anything and enter into any contract that the community would not know about and not be able to come and have input on before we vote on it, right? That's the other benefit. That's what, it protects the district from a relationship perspective, a commitment and an opportunity, but it also protects you guys because we're bound by that contract and we have to vote on it in public, what we're doing, and you get a chance to have a voice on that. So that protects the community as well. We're not gonna do anything behind anybody's back.
But here's my question. If the community right now is telling you to opt out, why are we not listening to them?
Right, or voting.
Or voting?
Well, it's not something to vote on, but to listen to the community.
So we don't have.
Well, no,
Should be. So we don't have a say.
No, we're here for no.
No, I'm not saying you don't have a say,
Yeah.
you do. But let me backtrack. I think there's two parts of this that I might be able to help clarify some of the misunderstanding. So part of it, I think, is the misunderstanding. How did we get here? Because this was designed to be very simple, and the way it was rolled out was this. Part one is misunderstanding. I'll get to that in a second. Let me do this part, which is why we have regionalization in the first place, because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings. I think people conflate the two things, which is HOCO and the legislator, wait, let me finish, and NYSED, who's governed by Betty Rosa. So here's the way it works. NYSED, New York State Department of Education, Commissioner is Betty Rosa, right? Her team is the Board of Regents. Governor Hochul, state legislature, is in charge of the budget cuts, is in charge of taking away state harmless and our funding, right? So Betty Rosa, and I know this because I happen to work for organizations for like a decade who have a direct pipeline. They have Betty Rosa on speed dial. I call someone and she says, Shala, hold on, Betty's on the other line. I say, wait, ask Betty these questions, which are a lot of your questions. So that's part of it. So this is how I know a lot of this information. So Betty Rosa knows we're getting budget cuts from Kathy Hochul. They're coming. She tried to take safe harmless from us. She tried to cut it last year. They're coming. What can we do? She asked her team to work with us. What can we do to help the districts? We have something in place already that works really well. We have BOCES, and that worked well. So why don't we take it and expand it to get districts even more help? So if you have Western Suffolk BOCES, now you have Long Island. If you're upstate in somewhere upstate New York where you're rural, now because you're isolated as a rural district, now you can partner with your neighboring districts. So that's part of why this is rolled out. The second part, and I think where a lot of this trust comes in.
Can't you do that anyway?
I'm sorry?
Can't you do that anyway?
No, not necessarily, no, not really.
But you mentioned bowling specifically.
But some of these.
That's something we're going to do, we don't need to do this.
Putting a framework around it helps, like, if you want to take, you said, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But also if you have something good and you can blow it up and get more out of it, and put more framework and more structure around it, and get more people to participate.
It sounds like.
But I don't want to sound redundant here. I think we're regressing. Again, you said it's up to the public.
I'm going to get.
But wait, I just want to answer that first. If he said, oh, we'll have the contract, and then, we're gonna make it where everybody can see it and vote on it, but we're voting now that we want to opt out.
I didn't say everybody could vote on it. We would vote on it, and we do that in public. My point is, we wouldn't be accessing or participating in any programs that come out of this without the public's knowledge and without the public being noticed that we're voting on it and choosing to participate, and being able to come and say, wait a minute, why are you doing that? We don't agree, we don't like that program. Help us understand why you're doing that, right? So.
Okay, let me get some clarity. You said, yeah, so you would explain it to the public, but they basically can't change your mind, is what you're saying.
Can I just finish?
I'm just asking because you said, you just said you'll explain to us if you have any questions, but I just want to know if, basically what I'm trying to ask, is opting out even a question anymore?
Let me just finish the thought process, and then we'll get back to that, because I might answer
So
that.
let's let you do that. So I'm happy to engage after this meeting. We generally, the idea of this is not to have a full-fledged discussion. I think we're getting down into the weeds, but any of these things in the future work no different than they do now. We have to approve programs, right? So just like we did tonight, we vote on things. And you're here to see that and hear that, and it's on an agenda that got published on Friday. So we're.
Shalon, just for 1 second though, just so you know, all the board members do have kids and in the district. So our number one concern, never mind for my own kid, but I know a lot of people know me out there that know. My only concern a lot of times is all the kids. So just understand where we come from. This board, that's all we care about is Kings Park and our kids. We have the right to opt out. We have the right to tell them no. We have the right to say no. And that's going to be our choice to say no.
But is it on the table?
We're participating, we submitted the survey already, but opting out of any program that comes out of it is all in the future. I don't know what we're opting out of yet, because there's no programs to opt out of yet, right? Those will be made on a case-by-case basis. So again, we're gonna ask, because we have other people who wanna speak, and happy to stay after and speak. So we'll let Shala address some things that she wanted to from her comment. No, you can speak.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah, I know.
And I guess, is there an incentive, like, in terms of priority access to these programs, or will they be provided to the school or to the district at a lower cost by not opting out? Like, is there some level of incentive outside of, I've heard the seat at the table, which is a preference. For me, especially coming from a smaller school district, I'm very happy with the way that we have progressed under the means that we have. So for me, I've been very clear, I think, on my opinion. But outside of the seat at the table, is there any other incentive to having priority access, lower costs versus the schools who are opting out? Because that would maybe not change my mind, but at least give me a positive spin on something.
I think I'll get to that after I just, unless you want to answer.
Honestly, I think the answer to that is some of it's to be determined because we don't know what the programs are. But honestly, I think the answer, to be quite frank, is no, right? Because, and you guys are all gonna get up in arms about this, districts that choose not to participate in a survey will still have access to the programs that BOCES comes up with, even if they don't participate in the survey and the discussions, right? They'll still have access, but the key point is BOCES has money to spend, to have meetings, to have discussions, so if we choose not to participate, we're not using those funds to fund the discussion on what BOCES is going to do. We're not part of the process and part of the discussion to help get things that we need, as opposed to maybe what some other districts' needs are, right? And so it's the seat at the table, that it really matters.
So the programs that would potentially be spoken of and everything like that, those will be funded by BOCES solely without a dip into the district funds.
I don't think you know the answer to that.
Well, BOCES has some funds to,
But it's good to
BOCES has some funds to operate, but as Dr. Egan said, so one of the biggest programs we participate is in summer school. We pay to send our kids to summer school, but we pay for what we use. We don't pay for empty seats, we don't pay for programs that don't run, we pay for the
But you're
students.
assuming that's what this is going to be.
And if it's not, we won't participate.
Well,
We'll say no.
But why not
This is-
say no, take a step back?
Because-
What am I saying no to? What am I saying no to if I don't know what it is? Why am I afraid to talk to people?
Can I finish what I
I
was
think
going
you're
to
giving
say?
them leverage that.
No, we're not, what we're doing is we're not ceding our leverage, we're not ceding our voice, right? Everybody was up in arms around COVID and other things about local control. This is about having a voice in the discussion. Why not? Honestly,
We don't know what we're agreeing to.
we're not agreeing to anything, yes, sorry.
So this is the way it works. So Betty Rosa wants to, and I know her from the work that I've done. I've known her since she was a Regents, and we know of her from the work that we do. She is very pro-student, very pro-school, right? And so we know this. So her intent is to protect and to try and help as best she can to save us from whatever budget cuts that Governor holds. Because that's where the energy should be. The budget cuts is a real disaster. Regionalization is to safeguard us from that. So this is the way it works. And I think there's some confusion that there's programs, are we paying for them, do we opt in, do we opt out? But that's not actually how it works. How it works is either through a meeting, or maybe it's a phone call. The district, our district would identify a need. We have a need, we need something. So at the table, we identify that need to BOCES.
But this language that you read, that sounds like we're sharing our resources.
No. What that means, I'll clarify. No, I hear what you're saying, I'm clarifying it. No, I hear what you're saying.
There is nothing to clarify.
But there is. So what that means is, if we identify a need, and the need is, we want to add AP microbiology. I don't know if that's a thing. Say we want to. We can't afford it. Say, even worse than that, we have budget cuts. We we are not even talking about adding programs. Now we have to talk about what we've cut. You can't afford them anymore. That's a possibility. Hang on, I'll get to your concerns. What that means is we want to add, we want to save something. Let's just stick with adding microbiology. We can't afford it. We talked to BOCES. BOCES matches us with a district who also wants microbiology. So we're going to hire a .2 teacher to come between both districts and work. That's what the language means by share a teacher. But it's lowering the cost for us, number one. Number two, it's adding a program that we would not be able to afford on our own. But that's what that language is referring to. It's also referring to.
And only if we choose to.
And if we want to. I mean, I'm saying we identified a need for us. That's what we want. We also want this program, whether it's the one that you mentioned or whether it's, I can only think of Kahoot, I can't think of anything else. Whatever it is, we want it. It costs $10,000 or $100,000. We can't afford it. So again, we identified a need. We need this program. We go to BOCES. BOCES, we need this. BOCES says, okay, let me see if I can find another district to partner you with. Great, we found 4 other districts, so that's gonna cut the even less. We share, but we share resources, right. We do this already, you're absolutely right, so why do it? We do it because, like I said before, because now we want that Kahoot, we want that .2 teacher. So we reached out to our cluster in Western Suffolk BOCES. Well, we did, we go to BOCES. BOCES said, okay, you have in your cluster, say it's Hopog, Comac, Smithtown, and whatever. They don't need, hold on a second, they don't need microbiology. They don't want it. So you can't have that teacher to partner with. But with regionalization, now, but hold on. But now with regionalization, we said, but okay, now you have an opportunity, Belmore Merrick wants it, so now we can partner with Belmore Merrick and reduce that cost, get that program where before it was a closed door. We couldn't do it, not in our Western Suffolk BOCES. But now, all regionalization does for us, and this is the only thing it does for us, it expands our opportunities to partner if we want to. And if a district calls us and says, we want microbiology, and as a district, we're like, we don't have any kids that want microbiology, no thanks. We tell BOCES no. And it's not really a case where, and I was saying, you know, if we say no so many times, then we can't, but it's not like that. It doesn't really work like that. It works on identifying a need. We identify it, we see if we can match it, if we can't, if they identify it, and that's it. And it's honest.
It's opportunities to, and I think, yeah, it's opportunities to share and maybe cut. I hate to say that we can't afford stuff, and maybe, but it's also an opportunity to save, right? Partner and save. So I want to be, I think, we have somebody else who signed up for comments, so we want to be respectful and get folks that came here to speak to have their time. Good?
Yeah, no, she just had her hand.
Good evening, my name is Kateri Bucarelli. I live at 93 Rumford Road here in Kings Park. Some of you remember me because I used to be a pain in the head when my kids were at school. I had a daughter in 2006 that was language exempt. And I called every district in the area, myself, and every district in the area had American Sign Language but us. And I was a pain to Mary DeRose because I was not giving up. They brought in a sign language teacher. They closed the class off to only children with IEPs. It was very difficult for a lot of kids with IEPs, and a lot of them dropped out. So my daughter had 1 year of language, and they said to me, we're not getting another sign language teacher, there's not enough interest. And I screamed and yelled, open it to the general ed, and you'll have interest. And she refused to do that. So somewhere with networking with a lot of you that remember me, they called Comac, and they shared the Comac teacher for 3 years. No contract, no big gadoo, no going through BOCES. They worked it out with Comac, and that teacher came for 3 years, and slowly the class size got smaller. The year my daughter graduated, there were 2 students left. And the deal they worked out, they met up the Kings Park Library on Saturday mornings to get their class so they could pass the Regents and get a diploma. They worked it out without a big contract with BOCES.
So-
They worked it out, let me finish.
Yep, sorry, you're
My
right.
daughter is
You're right.
now a sign language interpreter in a school district in Queens for special needs kids. So fighting that fight, I fought it, and you guys all helped me to do that, to let her achieve. And there are other students that can benefit from negotiating. These are your friendly neighbors that want to do deals with you, that have done deals with you, that you have done deals with. I don't think you need to go through a third party. Slows everything down and nothing gets done. Just my opinion.
Ms. Lucarelli, thank you. I'm happy to report that we have a very robust American
I
Sign
know
Language
you do, I
program
follow
now.
up on it.
That's good. And thank you for the comments. I think my only comment back would be, you're right, and there's many things that many people have fought for. Let's make it easier to have those conversations. Why fight? Why not have a mechanism to have those conversations and make it easier to do those
My
things?
fight was
And
with the board. I came up to every meeting and
No,
fought with the board.
I understand, I wasn't here, and I don't think any of us were here back then. Kevin was probably teaching, but I will say, so I wasn't here, I don't know. I would be willing to bet, I mean, I don't know how far in the past, I'd be willing to bet there was a contract between the districts. You probably didn't know about it, they didn't publicize it, wasn't a big deal.
Oh, I'm sure there
but-
was, with
yeah.
teachers and unions and stuff like that.
And again, keep in
I'm
mind,
sure there
on
was, but there wasn't a
thi-
third party.
Right, but also keep in mind that things we do for through BOCES, we get aid back. So we save money. So if you had done that through BOCES, it would have been cheaper.
It all comes down to the dollar.
Well, that's how we offer things for our kids. If anybody else wants to come up with, you can come up with comments.
I have a
but
quick
we-
question. What district are you going to be partnering with when everybody has opted out?
So that, I think, we don't know yet, but we know.
Oh, really? Come on.
Okay,
All local districts are opted out.
They have not all opted out, okay, so tell me who's opted out. Okay, you don't, okay, a rhetorical question, okay? We'll see, if there's nobody to talk about, it's over, and so we don't talk to anybody and nothing happens. If there's districts, so what did we lose by being willing to talk? There are other districts, through conversations Dr. Egan has had, we expect that there will be other districts that participate.
So the question also is, why do districts opt out? Because this looks very suspicious. Why do districts opt out, and how come we're still here? And I think there's a few answers for that.
Sorry, I think what's more important is why we're not. We don't know, we don't have all there, we can speculate, right? And we're probably better off not getting into speculation. But I think, we just think there's a potential opportunity, and we would be irresponsible to not pursue potential opportunity for more services for our kids at lower cost. That's every other discussion we have up here, is how do we have more for our kids for less? So we're not really sure why, I'm confused why trying to find an avenue to do more for less is a problem.
And I'm also confused, but I know you had a question, she had her hand raised for a long time.
No, I was just curious what BOCES gets out of this. If, I understand you're saying we get a seat at the table, but if there's a contract, there's another side. So what does BOCES get?
BOCES is an organization, this is what they're tasked with doing. It's the reason for their existence, right? They provide programming.
BOCES
Right.
is just a
They're not
facilitator.
gonna do this for nothing, so is there?
BOCES is a facilitator, right? They exist to facilitate, right? So that the idea is you get other districts together and it's mutually beneficial because there's 10 of us buying the same product instead of one, right? There's ability to partner on things. We don't know what they will be and what they look like, but BOCES exists. BOCES has a really big budget, right? As Dr. Egan said, we already use BOCES for $5 to $6 million of goods and services, right? That saves us money, right? More of that is better, right? If we can do this, if we can do the same things we're doing now, more of it through BOCES, it will be cheaper.
So my question then is, why wouldn't we? What's the fear, why wouldn't we? Not forget about other districts opting out. Why wouldn't we do this? And part of the things that I'm hearing from the community is because, one, they're afraid it's going to cost us money. but it's not. It's designed to save us money. 2, they're afraid our resources are going to go to other districts, but it's not, and I'll get to this in a second, but it's not. 3, because our districts are going to merge and we're going to lose local autonomy, but we're not. And the difference is, when you hear this from other people, or the ticky on the keyboard in social media, you need to ask the questions like you should to us too. How do you know that? How do you know that? Where do you see it in the regulations? Now, I have, and I would be more than happy to share with you, some of it is on Dr. Egan's PowerPoint, but not all of it. I can show you in the regulations where it says we're not going to merge, where it says it won't cost anything other than what we agree to, where it says, what we agree to, that's right. So if we want the AP class, and we agree that we want it.
We haven't agreed to anything
We haven't
that
agreed to
costs
anything.
anything.
If it serves our interest.
So
If it serves our interest only, that's all we pay for. That's it. And it's a lower cost. But that's in the regulations. So we're protected in the regulations. All of the fears that you see, there's so much information. You know what it's like when you play telephone when you're 5 and I say, you know, anything goes. And then it goes around and the last kid says, Timmy picks his nose. That's what happens here. Somebody sees something on social media and posts it. Somebody sees something on social media, hold on a second. But it's in the regs, but when you see it, you have to say, show me. I can show you in the regulations where it says, we're not merging. I can show you in the regulations where it says, we're not going to pay unless we want the service. That's it.
So, look, I think we're,
I just wanted to answer her question. I think that the issue is the if.
Okay.
There is no definitive answer that I think any of us are getting.
Right.
So, just to answer your question of what our opposition is, it's just the if.
I don't know what that,
So-
we'll talk after, 'cause I'm
yeah,
not sure.
I have to put my kids to bed unfortunately, so, and I'm sure you do too.
So look, again, let's wrap up. I think we're done with people that signed up for public comments. Again, I want to thank the people that are here and sharing your thoughts, letting us hear, having a bit of a debate. We let kind of our rules go a little bit loose tonight, so please, we can't always do that, but we thought it was important to have a discussion. As Shala said, we thought it was important to point people in the direction of the source of the rules and the source of our beliefs. If you feel differently, and happy to hear your thoughts, reach out to us. We can talk, we can schedule a phone call, we can meet with any of you. We're happy to do that. And again, talk through more of your concerns, talk through more of how we feel about this. We'd rather have a discussion and be part of that. And again, ask us for facts, ask anybody else that's worried about this, or if there's reasons to be worried, ask for facts, go find out. As I tell my kids with anything, go to the source, don't just look at what somebody else is saying about it. But again, thank you guys all for being here tonight. In terms of important dates coming up, Monday, January 20th, schools aren't closed for Martin Luther King Day, and Tuesday, January 28th is our next budget workshop and board of ed meeting, 7:30 here at the high school. I am going to make a motion to adjourn into executive session for purposes of negotiations. All in favor? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Really have a good night. We're here if you can stick around and want to talk, reach out to us.